So, is the 2023 election likely to break Nigeria's impasse in a country where the political elite is largely unrepresentative of a growing population? 2/3 of Nigerians are under the age of 35, and up to this point, most of them don't really vote. We'll have to see whether the turnout will improve this time. In the interim, what you've had is the perception of the elite competing for what's left of the country's resources, but not representing the people. So, will the 2023 election solve that fundamentally structural issue in relations between the state and society? Well, the PDP's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, suggests that it might be impossibly difficult unless it is accompanied by a strong pledge to restructure Nigeria. That process could be started by this election and by the active participation of voters, young and old, who seem determined to use the leverage of their collective voting power to force change. But can the PDP, which is advocating for that change, stay in the front lines, given the massive aftershocks of the divisions that are currently splitting the party at the seams? Well, for his take on that and all the other big political issues of the day, I'm delighted to say that I'm joined now in the studio by the publisher of Ovation magazine and former presidential aspirant, Dele Momodu, who is currently the Director of Strategic Communications for the Atiku National Campaign Management Committee. Thank you so much for coming in.
Finally, Charles, I'm here.
Finally, we meet on the telly.
Yes, please.
Let's start with the news that's emerging in the last few hours. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has acquitted the detained leader of IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu. What's your reaction to that?
Well, it's a good day for the rule of law. He's a gentleman. I had interviewed before his arrest, live on Instagram. It was a very, very explosive interview. A lot of people tried to discourage me from speaking to him. They got across even to my family, to my wife, that will go and warn your husband. But everybody must have a voice. And if you try to kill a voice, that is what leads to violence. And I was well enlightened, extremely intelligent, very brilliant gentleman. The following day, he tweeted that he was honored to have been interviewed by the Larry King of Africa. Of course, I felt honored. We had our moments of disagreements, but at the end of the day, it was a very good encounter. And since then, we've interacted a few times, of course, online, not physically. I've been in touch with his lawyers. When someone is done, he needs a few people at least to find out what is going on. And so when I heard the news this evening, I was quite excited.
And did you always feel that the charge, the fact that he was forcefully abducted from Kenya, which the court has now agreed is essentially what happened, made his case essentially untenable as far as his continued detention was concerned?
I mean, I've been in exile before, and I could just imagine someone abducting me on the streets of London when I was in exile. So for me, that was bad enough. And till today, no one knows precisely the circumstances under which he was abducted, and if he was brutalized and traumatized. But I've tried a couple of times to visit him through his lawyers, but it's not been possible. One of his lawyers, as of last week, was still promising that maybe he will be able to make a case. Fundamental human rights must be respected.
Absolutely.
Even if you believe he committed crime. So allow him to have his day in court, not that you bring him today, then you have indefinite postponement. So if he has committed a crime, then prosecute, convict, and sentence. That's all.
Well, we're going to have a lot more on that later on in this program, our analysts, and of course in the program that follows this one, which is Newsnight. But let's turn to the issues of the day, beyond this, which is, of course, the politicking in Nigeria, the campaigns, the election season, and the big divisions that appear to be splitting your party, the PDP. What's the state of play as far as mediation between Atiku Abubakar and Nyesom Wike is concerned? Because there were reports earlier suggesting that Governor Nyesom Wike had declared political support for Atiku Abubakar, but then there are some people disputing that, and I'm wondering if that's an old statement or if it is current.
What I know is that my principal, our candidate, Atiku Abubakar, is a peace-loving man. He's a Democrat to the core. He has matured in politics. He's a statesman. So he's been reaching out and continues to reach out to Governor Wike and his friends. I always like to describe Governor Wike as our poster boy. You know, I make no apologies about it. That is probably the best governor in Nigeria. And he's a man who is very passionate about PDP.
Well, he would like to hear you saying.
Oh, I say it all the time. And we've been friends for a few years now. I've lived in Port Harcourt, you know, working on his projects, more than I've even lived in Lagos. So he's a man we all respect. And if he's angry, we must do everything possible to make sure that we get him to calm down. I've made attempts, personally. I've not quite succeeded, but I can tell you that our principal is very determined to make sure he brings everyone on board. And as I speak to you, trust me, people are speaking to him.
Yes, but that doesn't seem to be working so far, though, because the other story making the rounds, which I'm sure that you've heard, is that the PDP's Presidential Campaign Council has suspended its rallies over the disagreement with Nyesom Wike. Is that true or not?
That is a rumor that came out of the Nation newspapers yesterday, and I debunked it immediately.
I saw your
this
your
weekend,
reaction.
we're in Kaduna. We are going to Kaduna. A lot of activities. I don't want to reel them out. Look, we've taken off in a supersonic manner. Others are yet to even start from anywhere. We were in Bauchi the other day, not for a campaign. I called it testing of the mic. We were just testing the mic. The crowd was moving. They were moving as if there was a breeze. And that is when I said movement past movement. We have the movement. PDP is the oldest surviving political party. PDP is the largest party in Africa. So we're solid. We're solid. We have started and nothing is going to stop us. Yes, we may move due to logistical reasons. We can move. Maybe we're supposed to be in Kebbi today. We move it to Sokoto tomorrow. But that we will stop. Nothing is going to stop us. We're too legit to quit.
Well, I mean, what's likely to get in the way is this these sort of ructions within the party.
No.
I mean, you've put out releases in the past appealing for peace and reconciliation, but that's not happening yet, is it?
It is happening. A lot of people are joining us in droves. They are joining us. But I can tell you that we are almost at that point, that breaking point, when everybody will come back together. We are a family. I mean, the governor of Oyo State has an election next year on the platform of PDP. He's not going to destroy his own party. He's one of our best, a young man, cerebral, brilliant. So why is he? So what is, I think the state things are, is that we just must negotiate with them and agree on some deliverables. That's all.
Let's turn to the big issues of the day. One of them is, of course, economic management. The Nigerian Minister of Finance has disclosed that the government is in talks with the IMF and the World Bank, although there's been some attempts to modify that statement to restructure this country's debts. The government is also considering tapping into the IMF's newly created food shock window, which allows member countries to access emergency financing. Are you struck by the level of fiscal irresponsibility in this country? Years and years of overspending, going back to the years when the PDP was in power up till today, and the politicians who are supposed to be in charge of the future of this country never being clear on how they're going to resolve that situation.
That is why you have an Atiku Abubakar in the race. In the days of tribulations, you run to the elders of the house. You run to those who have done it all.
Yeah, but it's the elders who some would allege have messed up this country.
How did he mess up? Under President
I'm not saying him in particular. I'm saying
under President Obasanjo and Atiku Abubakar, you saw what happened. We were able to resolve our debt issue. They cleared it.
That is true.
They cleared it. So, and who was in charge of the economic team? The vice president. And this is a man in his private capacity has continued to develop the human capital in Nigeria in every facet of human life. You know, so in him, we know that the fear of an average Nigerian is, hey, after APC leaves, whosoever is coming is in trouble. But we know with Atiku Abubakar, with his wealth of experience, global contact, he will know what to do. It's not just in Nigeria that IMF issues are coming up. Even in my other country, one of my favorite countries, Ghana, they're having the same issue. But it requires experience and it requires discipline. And you need a leader who will be able to say, hey, enough of this drift towards perdition. Because it's like we are heading in the direction of Golgotha. And I pray that our candidate wins, and then we can begin to reactivate Nigeria.
But if he's got all this experience in dealing with debt and so on, people would say, tell us what you're going to do about it. How are you going to get about it? Because your response is interesting, but I haven't heard any mention of specific economic policies. I mean, what is he going to do about debt? What are you planning to do with skyrocketing interest rates, with widening inflation that seems impossible to escape, and of course the growing debt burden, as I mentioned? What are the answers and solutions that he and your team have for all of that?
He's explained it in his 5-point agenda. Number one, you need a country at peace. Nigeria has been in perpetual strife. Nigeria has just been moving from one difficulty to another. So you need a man who will come in and stabilize. With that stability, we're going nowhere. And he's explained so that is why when he mentioned the issue of restructuring, he's not just talking about restructuring the way many people come with highfalutin theories. He's talking about it as it affects every Nigerian. So we'll make sure that he comes there, then every Nigerian feels a sense of belonging. Nigerians are among the most talented human beings on earth. We're very creative. There is so much we can do to generate income in this country. But unfortunately, we're all looking towards oil. So of course, Atiku Abubakar is going to look in the direction of practical diversification. And who can do it? A man who is not an importer. He's growing everything right here. And he knows how difficult it is to do business and make profit. So when he comes in, we're going to look in the direction of diversification. Number three is that he has global contacts. So he knows how to attract investors and investments to the country. Without investments, there is no magic anybody is going to perform. Atiku Abubakar is going to make sure that there is no scaremongering, because wherever there is scaremongering, investors run away. And that is why I try to appeal to my friends on Twitter and social media who create the impression that the end has come for Nigeria. Nigeria is going to collapse unless you do this. That is not the way to go. We've suffered enough because of this fear. When you create so much fear, then it becomes a monstrosity and everybody's going to run away. But with an Atiku Abubakar, you have a calm, cool-headed gentleman who will be able to call everybody, local investors, foreign investors, and give them a renewed hope in the new Nigeria. That is the rescue that we need very urgently.
Well, there are so many young people who worry about the economic future of this country and whether there'll be anything left for them going into that future. How are you going to reassure them, build economic confidence in Nigeria for young people who don't see any light at the end of a very dark tunnel? I mean, you just talked about the fact that there's this doomsday sense, a sort of, Armageddon sort of thing. And in many ways, if you live the lives that they live, you'd think Armageddon was upon you.
Trust me, I entered the University of Ife in 1978. We thought there was Armageddon. Every generation goes through its own Armageddon. Nigeria is overblessed. We have not even tapped 1% of the blessings of God. In this country, we have bitumen. Every time we hear about bitumen in Ondo State, second largest deposit, nobody does anything about it. We have oil and gas. We are all talking about oil. Nobody is talking about gas. We have it. All it takes is a business-inclined person who understands what it takes to run a business.
But you have to free those resources, don't you? That's partly what you're talking about, restructuring and all the rest of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Even the issue of electricity that we all talk about, you can't do anything in this country if you don't have electricity. But you need someone who knows what the bottlenecks are all about. Bureaucracy, too much bureaucracy.
Right.
So, experience is the best teacher.
So the man who's going to wave the magic wand and everything is
must
going
have the experience.
Everything is going to be all right. Is Atiku, is it?
Atiku is the man.
How does he, because you have a lot of experience yourself. I mean, you ran for president. How does he compare, objectively speaking? Because people have always associated you with objectivity. How does he compare to the other frontline candidates?
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging anyone, but you know that he is way ahead of the other candidates. He's
well, I don't know. I'm asking you to tell me what it is about him that's way ahead.
At the national level.
Well, but the argument of his detractors is that he didn't hold any really executive position.
No, that is the most influential, the most powerful vice president in the history of Nigeria. He knew what to do. That is why a lot of people till today, they defer to him. They see him as a man they could go to. He assembled the best team of young people, professionals, technocrats. His office in the villa at that time was where to be. All the young guys I knew in the villa, they were working with Atiku Abubakar. So I'm not just forming the usual spokesman. I am director of strategic communication, but I'm speaking objectively to you that Atiku Abubakar has always been a man who has the Midas touch. You go and check the quality of everything. In fact, when I joined him last week, I resumed at the office. I could not believe the level of organization. The last time he contested was nearly 4 years ago. Everything is intact, as if he's been running the office permanently. So you need such a disciplined man. Very disciplined, very focused, very tenacious. He has never given up on his dreams. I once asked him, so how come you still want to contest? And he said, when you have so much to give to your country, you cannot give up on your country. That the country has been too good to him. And that's the truth. In every way possible, Nigeria has been very good to Atiku Abubakar.
But are you concerned by the level of challenge that you're seeing, not just from the APC, but from the Labour Party? And how that is eating into the traditional areas, voting areas of the PDP?
There is no doubt that they are doing well. But trust me, I don't feel any challenge. They are doing well. I give it to them. They are doing very well. But At the point where Nigeria is today, I can assure you that a lot of people who would have joined that movement are very worried at the level of cyberbullying. It's either you want democracy or you want a revolution. You must choose one. There is nowhere you mix the two and you will not end up in monumental disaster. So that's number one. Number two, the people who are not angry to the extent of saying, let's just disrupt everything, let us destroy everything. They are watching that. Are we going to make another mistake whereby you elevate a candidate to the level of sainthood? There are no nations governed by saints. Nations are governed by performers. Leadership is about managing people and resources, and people are going to ask, so what have you managed? How many people have you employed? So, whether in APC or in PDP, there is nobody who has managed people and resources at the level that Atiku has done. None.
Well, I have to say that Dele Momodu, it's always fascinating talking with you and getting the benefit of your many years of experience. I should actually say, Are Bashorun.
Thank you,
because
Mr.
I've known you for a long time, so
yes,
I think I can comfortably say that. Thank you very much indeed. And Dele Momodu, of course, is the publisher of Ovation magazine, former PDP presidential aspirant, and now currently the director of strategic communications for the Atiku National Campaign Management Committee. Thank you again.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
You're